Carson and CounterPoints debate. Like every other one, they went like an hour, and I was like scrambling to fill another hour because I didn't have anything planned.
Yeah, what was that?
You guys were like about to like easily go over 2 hours that were slotted. So yeah, the other two debates were a little bit not great. Sorry.
What were they on?
The first one was on LGBT that turned into a JQ debate. The second one was on trophy hunting.
That says debate Russia. So.
Within the first 15 minutes, Will's like, all right, yeah, I agree with you.
I'll debate Russia. Where's he at?
Somebody says in your chat, debate Russia. I think that might be good.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, we can do that.
No.
All right. I'll be right back for that 1 second.
No.
Okay, so
Get ready for his
how many pro-Russian idiots are in here? Let's go. How many fucking retards do we have?
Chats.
All right, 1,
Hail
2,
Star Putin.
3. Glass Moscow.
Yes. Okay. So how do you feel about Russia doing so fucking terribly in the war? All the pro-Russians. It's got to be pretty embarrassing. Getting your asses handed to you by like a fucking much smaller country. How sad is that?
Who is speaking?
I'm Penner. You can just call me Penner.
Penner.
Yeah.
He's the counterpoints guy.
Yeah. Well, I'm my own guy.
You're an idiot. You're just the product of mass state propaganda.
Oh wait, okay.
I don't even like. We don't even have to answer.
Point there.
So in the West, we have this thing called independent media. So anyone can start their own media company. Russia only has
Nice
state
take.
media. Russia only has state
Totally
media.
isn't owned by corporations that support the government.
Yeah, sponsored
Congrats.
by that.
There's literally like anyone can start their own media company. Anyone can.
Yeah, let
do it.
me
You can-
just get on a plane and fly to
No,
Ukraine
all
and
those
record.
people say something
Okay,
like
okay.
that.
Hold on.
Tom, you want a mod?
Yes, let Penner finish. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Tom. You're mod.
Okay. All I'm saying is that if we have to choose to trust between like multiple independent media sources and then just state media, I think being able to pick and choose and look through multiple media sources is probably a lot better than simply relying on only state propaganda. That's my take.
We need to blah blah. Dude, like, look, here are the facts. The liberal regime is engaging in a propaganda campaign to demonize Russia. They hate Russia. They hate anything that opposes their liberal hegemon. Obviously, I'm going to side with the people who oppose the liberal hegemon, who want me dead and in a camp. So I think that's pretty selfish.
So you're just like basically it's a knee-jerk reaction. You don't actually have any principles on this. You're just like, oh well, the people that I don't like this, so therefore I'm in favor. You have absolutely no principles. You're just like, oh well.
That's exactly what politics is. That's exactly what politics is.
Politics is
who is against me, who's on my side. I'm going to use political power to protect the people and benefit the people that are on my side that I think should be upheld as figures in this society. That's exactly what politics is, and it's utilizing political power to protect those you care about and to attack those who threaten that which you care about.
You think Russia's on your side?
No, I didn't say that. When did I once say that?
Well, you're saying it's about who's on your side. So then why are you supporting Russia? They're not on your side. They're invading another country. They're killing tons of people for no good reason because they're an incompetent fucking autocracy. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Because they're at war.
Yeah, they're invading another country for no goddamn good reason.
No reason.
I mean,
okay,
like,
why we don't need to do that anymore. Okay, it's the 21st century. Okay, we can use like economic pressure.
You can't change the inclinations of mankind. Okay.
Yes, you can, because we haven't had a major war in a long time. We don't need to invade other countries to take their shit anymore. We can just do economic.
Why? Because we're so civilized nowadays. Because we murder 70 million babies a year. Oh, we're so above violence. We're so above violence. We don't even do that shit.
It's a step It's a step up from World War. Yeah, it's a step up from World War.
Hey, so
you want to go back to World War I? You want to go back to like every 50 years, Europe devolves into like every single country trying to kill everyone in every single other country? Are you fucking insane? What is wrong with you?
The stability it led to, though. It turns out when you ignore your problems,
the best world we've ever had.
Let him finish, and then we're gonna let some other people jump in. Go ahead, Carson.
Okay. There you go, Tom.
Carson, go ahead.
Yeah, Carson.
Oh, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
What was I even saying? I just said it turns out that whenever you allow people to solve their problems, it if you ignore them, then the problems eventually will erupt, and that's essentially what you're seeing now. You had this liberal world order that's just completely corrupt. It's ridiculous. It's doing the exact same evil as you accuse Russia of doing. It's doing it to its own people, which is worse.
Do you think what?
Yeah.
Are artillery striking civilians who are like fully developed is the same thing as abortion? Also, is that
Ukrainians
what
are
we're saying?
Russians now?
Yeah.
Always have been.
No, they weren't.
No, it doesn't.
Can't hurt.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Texans are Mexicans.
Yeah.
What?
So I'm gonna say it's not the
They
same
were
thing.
originally Mexicans. They're always Mexican.
I'm gonna say that people having reproductive health care is
You know
not
what?
the same
Abortion
thing
is
as
worse.
bombing and bombing
You're
people.
talking about
Yeah, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in. Put my
Speak to the
At least the Ukrainians
Hold
gonna
on,
move out of
hold
the
on,
way.
hold
The
on.
babies can't do shit.
Is this a serious like are we actually saying
I
that
think
like
Carson is serious.
artillery striking people is like the same as abortion? Are we saying that's like morally
Abortion's
equivalent?
worse for sure.
Okay, so let's go over this for a second. So the reason why abortion exists is because like some people don't want to have.
People are
Stop
retarded. The
allowing
reason
him
why
to-
Yo, hold on. Let Penner go.
Just stick to this topic.
I don't have the ability to mute people currently, so
Okay, I'll give you mod privileges, but don't go crazy. with
Penner,
it.
go ahead, and then Birdwatcher, you can respond.
Okay, thank you. So the reason why abortion exists is it's unfortunately a necessary evil. Sometimes people have kids that are unwanted, and so there's like a utility to it. I think it's distasteful. I think like ideal world we wouldn't have abortion, but there's a big utility to it. So what Russia's doing in Ukraine, there's no utility to it. All they're doing is killing people needlessly. They're not even going to win the war. Okay, so it's just going to be like World War I. What happened in World War I? Nothing. Everyone died and nothing really changed in the world. World War II too. Like Germany did all that shit in World War II. So many people died and nothing was accomplished by it. So yeah, the thing is, abortion is not morally equivalent to war.
Also,
because there's a
abortion is
utility to it.
legal in Russia.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Russia has like the highest abortion rates in the world. I forgot about that.
That's happening in spite of Russia, not because of Russia. It's
I mean,
like you're dealing
Wait,
with a
what?
regime building up that's building back up.
it's because of the inability of even enforcing such measures.
In the history of the world. So look, it's happening in spite of the current situation.
Are we gonna let Birdwatcher
Abortion
respond?
or the war? Because Russia started the war when they didn't need to. Okay, they if they wanted to like.
There was
keep
plenty of
Ukraine-
opportunities for the war not to happen, bro. What the fuck do you mean?
Well, yeah.
They were
On both sides.
rash in engaging in the invasion when he did.
Well, he shouldn't have invaded at all. So here's the thing: is like invading your neighbor is not how you engage in geopolitics. Okay, like if the U.S. wants to like get a better trade deal with Mexico, we don't invade them. Okay, that's not how it works. Like the U.S. isn't invading Canada. Okay, you don't invade like your stable democratic neighbors. That's not how the world works anymore.
Is that what Russia was trying to do? Get a better trade deal with Ukraine?
Well, no. What happened was they were upset that Ukraine was moving into like the West's geopolitical sphere, and so they wanted to stop that.
Look, Ukraine has existed as a vassal state. It's existed as a buffer state between essentially like. Do you know much about the Cyprus conflict?
Cyprus, you mean like down in the Mediterranean?
Yeah. So essentially, you have you have two states that are at war with one another, and then you have a middle in between that acts as a buffer state. It's owned by essentially nobody. This is what Ukraine has existed for the past, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, essentially. Sometimes you see it like a little bit more in 2013, where you see it move a little bit more towards the Russians. And then you saw the CIA coup in 2014 and the eruption of the Ukrainian civil war.
Buddy.
We're gonna go to
We got war
Connor.
with Russia.
We're gonna let Connor respond.
No, like you're talking in like you're talking like the collapse of the Soviet Union was some like fucking far off fucking thing that justifies what's going on now. That was the Soviet Union collapsed after I was born. This is this is a generational thing, and on top of that, like based off of your logic, so like. Texas, the Hispanics are immigrating to Texas at record rates, and on top of that, it was originally a part of Mexico. So should Mexico re-annex Texas back? Like, what is this logic?
Give it a crack.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I think we should annex all the way down to the Panama Canal.
Fuck yeah! Now we're talking.
Hold on, real quick, Carson.
Look,
Carson,
Mexico
your
and
mic.
Australia, they're
Hold
only
on, hold on, Carson. Your mic isn't. Carson, your mic's not making any sound at all if somebody else is speaking for some reason. Like it's. as soon as somebody
really
else makes a
does,
noise, you drop off completely.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So whatever you were just saying, you can go ahead and repeat that without any interruptions, please.
What was I saying?
I was saying that based off of that logic, should Mexico be able to re-annex Texas because they have majority Hispanic citizens and it's a buffer state between them and the United States?
Well, and I'd say no because look, the United States is clearly more powerful than Mexico, obviously, and also their political ambitions they align for the most part.
So does might make right? Like,
well, and Texas isn't a buffer state.
I mean, there's
No, you're
no
not dealing-
very clear geographic definition. I mean, it's what the Rio Grande River is crossed daily by hundreds of thousands of people. So
Yeah, and
why not?
I think that the military should be utilized to get that under control, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
I
what
wouldn't say
if we're so politically ineffective that literally Texas becomes majority Hispanic? Does Mexico then have the right to annex it?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Why not? I mean, it's the same logic. The eastern parts of Ukraine
Texas, which is
are
an
majority
independent
Russian.
part of the United States versus Ukraine, which is not a part of. It's a sovereign state. Texas is not a sovereign state.
Texans
Ukraine
would
is the
absolutely fucking
sovereign
disagree
state.
with you on that one.
But Ukraine
mean,
is
I'm-
the sovereign state, right?
What's that?
Ukraine is the sovereign state, though, right? So, like, that's
Yeah, they
that's
are.
what their comparison is. They're saying,
Well, and look, like if I think Americans would find it just as outrageous if Texas were or not like Canada were to like enter in a strategic alliance with Russia. Would you not?
So the analogy here, this actually is an interesting argument because they're geopolitically contrary to our interest, and we're geopolitically contrary to Russia's interest, right? So I think that is an interesting question, but then it would be interesting if, so NATO, right? NATO is an alliance of countries that are joining together. So this would be more like if Russians started training with Canadians in order to counter a U.S. invasion, which was actually possible.
Yeah, and I'd say Ukraine has sponsored NATO military exercises in the region. They've aided in putting down some of the rebellions that are occurring in the east of Ukraine. You've seen NATO volunteer forces being sent over there.
So actually, this is an interesting moral question. So if we started talking about invading Canada in order to expand our political influence, and Canada started looking to exterior countries to bolster their defensive alliance, and then we invaded Canada, do you think that Canadians would be justified in resisting and also justified in basically engaging in those diplomatic alliances to defend their borders?
I don't think the question. I mean, of course I would. I mean, I think any people defending their nation is admirable, and I think Ukrainians have done I think especially the propaganda campaign that's gone about it. I think it's the stuff that they're talking about is very admirable, but nonetheless, if I'm in favor of the United States, I'm not going to celebrate that.
Celebrate us supporting Ukraine or what?
Well, no, you brought up the Canada example.
Okay. So you're just appealing from Russia's natural self-interest and their logical self-interest.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I think from a
I don't think
pragmatic
anybody disagrees
standpoint.
with it descriptively.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think from a pragmatic standpoint or from a realist standpoint, I think that Russia seems to be justified. But from a moral standpoint or from the way that we want the world to work going forward, and it seems like what we've been doing for a while is we've figured out ways for all of us to be able to get what we want without having to kill a bunch of people. This seems to just turn us back. I was going to say 100 years,
century.
but maybe 20 years.
I don't even think it's in their self-interest, though, to be honest. I think it's totally against their self-interest because they've basically fucked their entire country now. They're fucked. Russia's fucked.
It seems like we're the only ones who fucked up our country.
Excuse me?
Russia's war machine is moving perfectly fine.
Okay, so what game?
Why didn't they take Kyiv? Hold on, this is autism. Why didn't they take Kyiv?
It was a fake.
What's that?
It was a fake.
Why didn't they take the capital of the country they were invading if their military strategy is going flawlessly?
I thought it was
I'm not here.
Kiev.
You probably know more about their military strategy because you served in the military.
I don't accept that because I was an enlisted person, which means that I'm basically a dumbass who held up my hand and then learned how to do shitty logistics in a software program and learned how to get my ass kicked. The reason why I think you're wrong is because I studied these things outside of the military. But my point being that I'm pretty sure that if Russia could have installed a puppet regime in Ukraine, they would have. The reason why they didn't is because they realized that in order to take Kyiv, there was a shitload more resistance than they were originally counting on.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I'm just saying, the reason I brought up that is because Americans in the West broadly are the ones who are bearing a lot of the burdens of these, this moral upstanding and whatnot.
Not really.
Yeah, I was going to say Europe is a lot more precarious than we are because they're bearing the energy costs. We actually have relative energy security compared to everybody else. So even though our prices are high, everybody else is way more fucked than we are.
Exactly.
And also
Exactly.
Africa and Ukraine and Russia are supposed to be the breadbasket for a lot of African countries. So the food shortages are not really going to affect us, but they will affect Africa and Europe.
I agree fully.
Okay,
That's what
I'm just saying we're not bearing the majority of the brunt. If anything,
when I say we, when I say we, I mean the broader liberal empire. The imperial territories like the EU that exist as essentially just bearing the will of the United States.
Do you think that's worse than for instance in Russia where they're completely economically and culturally cut out from majority of the world to the point that their movie theaters are literally pirating movies because they can't?
I think that's exactly what I agree. From our standpoint, that's probably bad, but I also think that's probably exactly what the regime in Russia wanted.
I really don't think so.
Why is that?
Their economy is in
Why would
tatters.
you want to consume the enemy's material?
Well, that's not the only problem, though. It's
if you're Russia, why would you let that keep happening anyway?
That's just a minor thing. That's a minor thing, though. It's the main problems that Russia's having right now is their industries have been largely reliant on Western components, and so they're having massive shortages. They're having stuff that's shutting down. They're having stuff that's breaking. They're even having trouble making their tanks because they've still been reliant on a lot of Western components for the more sensitive sensors thermals, that kind of stuff, for their airplanes. So their war industry is having trouble because the sanctions are this bad. They're not having a good time, and you can point at the ruble and say, oh look, it recovered, but the only reason the ruble has recovered is because Russia's been doing all sorts of insane currency manipulation, basically creating artificial demand by not letting any of their citizens sell it, and then forcing anyone. Pardon?
Like our government's doing?
No, it's not even close to being the same. You have no idea what you're talking about. The only reason the Russian the ruble is limping along right now is because you're not allowed to actually sell it to anyone, and anyone who's doing exports in Russia has to literally buy rubles as a certain person. It's massive government intervention just to what?
Forced bonds?
Yeah, essentially. So basically, the Russian economy is it's going to be fine now with the stopgaps as they keep burning their foreign currency reserves. But long term, the longer the war goes on, the worse it looks for Russia. And right now, Russia is unable to make breakthroughs. They're making very slow progress. They're making progress, but it's very slow. They're not making any breakthroughs.
They'll keep Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea, but and if you say that's their goal, then whatever, right? Okay, but then they basically traded their international credibility for 3 geopolitical territories and access to the Black Sea, which they could have negotiated. That's why everybody in the Western Imperial Core is what the fuck is this? Is because you probably could have achieved the same result without bloodshed.
Hey, they could just literally.
I'm saying I think that's an effective strategy. I think they've definitely showed that they're I don't know if really anybody in the ruling world order is going to want to fuck with Russia after this, or even interact with them.
We're
Are
all
you kidding?
laughing at Russia.
I think it's the
Are you
opposite.
kidding?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
you're just assuming that we buy into the world order myth.
Well, so you guys are saying the whole like they're doing bloodshed and everybody's freaked out by it. They want to stop it. It's this evil. Everybody did not predict it. And then you're also saying, we're all laughing at them. They're doing horribly.
Can I explain
and,
this?
like,
Only Hassan
sure.
didn't predict it.
Yeah, can I want to explain this. The reason why we would be simultaneously saying we're laughing at Russia, but also they're doing horrible shit, is it doesn't take a lot of like technological or moral sophistication to like artillery bombard cities filled with fucking people, right? Like that's not like a good thing and it's morally reprehensible. But if you look at the invasion, particularly from like a military standpoint, the way that you're accusing us, like the pro-Westerners, of consuming pro-Ukrainian propaganda is the way that I think a lot of pro-Russian people are consuming pro-Russian propaganda. Because we've seen like unsupported air raids on like advanced positions in Ukraine that resulted in like Russian special forces basically getting slaughtered. We've seen like their supposed like technical sophistication for tanks and for aircraft not be beneficial, and like that's fucking crazy in the modern era. Like America, basically anytime America goes to war, we have air supremacy within the first day, and we are bombing the shit out of the assets of the opponent within the first day. The fact that Russia still doesn't have air supremacy 2 months into a fucking war is borderline embarrassing.
It's
like,
very
Yeah, and
embarrassing.
so look, I have criticized how Russia's gone about their invasion, because look, like again, you have to like there's a demand especially in the modern age, you have to force your enemy to surrender before you even declare war on them. Nobody declares war anymore, but like that's a saying that you do. You have to weaken the morale of your enemy before, and I'll say Vladimir Putin failed to do that. He failed to actually weaken his enemy before he decided to invade. So,
and if anything, he's bolstered it. And that's like so if his goal, like if I got an email from Vladimir Putin like 90 days ago and he was like, hey, I'm going to do a feint on Kiev so I can take Donbass, Luhansk, and Crimea, and fuck the international community, I don't give a shit, I don't want to be involved in it anymore, then I would be more sympathetic to the pro-Russian people. But considering how bad the conflict has gone for Russian forces, a lot of this does not look planned. It doesn't look cohesive. It looks like they thought they were going to steamroll Ukraine. They didn't. And then now they're kind of like looking for a compromise that isn't completely embarrassing. That's what it looks like from the outside.
Connor, you had a debate with somebody about a month ago on this. Who was that again?
I talked to like LTR on I forgot the podcast name, but there's Breaking the Rules, BTR. So I had a conversation on their podcast about it, but I also think I had a different debate. I forget, to be honest, but BTR was like maybe 2 weeks ago.
I remember
Nick will probably want to talk about it.
I remember I reviewed one of your debates on this, and I remember you had one point that you were able to keep hitting home over and over, and that was the treaty, like them breaking the treaty. I remember every time they'd start kind of like pulling away, and you'd be like, yeah, but that freaking treaty though.
To be honest, that might have been destiny, because for me, I don't care about the like for instance, like people will talk about like the Belarus Accords, or they'll talk about like these different agreements where like Ukraine promised to not go nuclear as long as it was like neutral, or the NATO promised not to build any bases in Eastern Europe, or at least Eastern Germany, when they were negotiating with the Soviet Union. I don't give a fuck about any of that, because basically when the Soviet Union collapsed, the party that they were negotiating with was no longer there. So at that point, why aren't you going to consolidate your gains as a geopolitical entity? Like, power abhors a vacuum. So for me, that thing's null and void. And then for Ukraine and Russia, who's violating the treaty, it doesn't fucking matter. The truth is that if Russia wanted access to the Black Sea, if it wanted Crimea, if it wanted Donetsk and Luhansk to no longer be like artillery shelled, a majority of this didn't need to involve an invasion of Western Ukraine. They literally could have just like taken Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea and then militarily fortified it and then given a middle finger to the rest of Ukraine, and nobody would have done shit about it. And also on top of that, there wouldn't be any international outcry. They literally fucked up by invading Western Ukraine because basically they bolstered NATO. We're now talking about Finland and Sweden maybe joining NATO, and previously they were completely against it.
Real quick, Flamenco, did you have any thoughts on
I've not been
Ukraine,
keeping
Russia?
up
he
with
said
the
he said
fucking,
just let him know when we're done with the
war
like,
in Ukraine,
Russia
so I have
stuff.
absolutely nothing to add to the
you're good.
conversation.
Just hang out with us until
We
then
can change the subject real quick then.
Well, so-
No,
Yeah,
I got like maybe.
yeah.
I got maybe 10 minutes, and then honestly, I need to read whoever's left in chat their questions and go to bed. But
I do want to ask them before you go into the panel, and this is more of a shitpost question. What do you think of the lack of any sort of cultural markers of 9/11 in the recent Disney Pixar movie Turning Red?
What?
I'm autistic enough to get this.
I'm outraged. Okay. I'm absolutely outraged. They didn't fly a single plane into a single building. Nobody said never forget.
Okay, so for the people who are not autistic and not on Twitter, basically there was a movie that was set in 2002, and some media commentator basically said the one objection I had about the movie is they didn't mention 9/11 once, and it's like a kids movie about like drawing like pictures or some shit. I fucking it was a Twitter autism.
It is a little weird because it like the whole like she turns into a panda thing is like a metaphor for girls going through puberty, but she also goes through puberty and like, you know, that the stuff that teenage girls go through when they go through puberty. And it's just really weird that they had like both the metaphor and then the actual thing happen, and there's like some weird shit in that too.
And
But
not one mention of 9/11 during the
not
entire
one mention
thing.
of 9/11, yeah.
During this girl's puberty.
It's not okay.
My
All right, I think I'm
chat's-
gonna head out, guys. Thanks for allowing me to participate.
Thank you so much for coming
Counterpoints,
on.
you were a gem. Counterpoints. I'm not gonna lie, dude.
I'm looking
I
forward to
liked discussing with you. Thank you for being my first debate. Really appreciate it, dog.
My pleasure. I look forward to having pleasant conversations with Groypers in person and getting shitpost super chats in instead. So appreciate it.
Twitter feed
You should also
in
get
chat.
pretty spicy
Groyper.
too.
It's gonna be fun.
I was gonna see if you wanted to do, because I only have like 10 to 15 minutes left as well. I was gonna see if you guys wanted to talk about, well, I guess now that he's gone, maybe not, but because I don't know if there's anybody or if there's gonna be, all of the Groypers just left. All of them.
Might be.
So yeah, they're all gone. I was gonna say.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Wow.
Brittany, quick, go shine the Groyper light.
Yeah.
The Groyper symbol.
Put your,
Yeah, like,
Put on your burqa.
yeah,
I'll
put
come
your
back
burqa on. Yeah.
it's basically bait right now at this point.